The year is 1943. A man is riding on top of his Sherman battle tank across the African desert. He has two ivory-handled Colt 45s on his hip and a cavalry saber in his hand. He's barking orders and waving his sword. This is a scene you can probably imagine in some old war movie. A larger-than-life American hero leading men from the front into the heart of battle. However, this scene isn't from a movie. This is an actual man, General George Patton. Last week I read to you one of Patton's most famous speeches. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about the man himself. His whole story is way too long to cover in 5 minutes, though, so I'm just going to give you a brief rundown on his early life and career, his role in World War II, and finally some insight into the type of man that Patton was. First I'm going to talk to you about his early life. General George Smith Patton Jr. was born on November 11, 1885 in California. He struggled with academics as a child, but overcame it for the most part, and he went on to attend the prestigious West Point Academy in 1904. At West Point, he was on the track and field and fencing teams. After graduating, he was commissioned to second lieutenant in the cavalry. While a junior officer, he impressed his leaders with his discipline and his dedication to his duty. He even competed in the 1912 Olympics in Stockholm. He was a pentathlete. In 1916, Patton joined the legendary American commander John J. Pershing in the expedition into Mexico to hunt for Pancho Villa. He served as Pershing's personal aide. It was in Mexico that Patton had his first combat experience. While on patrol with 10 men and 3 1915 Dodge Brothers touring cars, his men surprised and killed 3 of Villa's men. According to History.com, Patton then strapped the corpses to the hood of his car like trophy animals, and then drove them back to the base. This was the first mechanized attack in the history of American warfare. Patton would later go on to serve under General Pershing again in World War I, where according to his official biography, he fought in the world's first major tank battle, and he was awarded the Purple Heart. Next we're going to talk about what Patton is most famous for, his role in World War II. Patton is largely considered the greatest field commander of the war on any side. He defeated Rommel in North Africa and then went on to liberate Sicily. It was here that Patton ran into trouble. He slapped and berated 2 enlisted soldiers who were suffering from battle fatigue, which is roughly what we call PTSD today. He was reprimanded and then sent back to England. Because the Germans placed Patton in such high regard, he was placed in charge of the completely fake 1st United States Army Group. This was a fictitious unit made up of inflatable tanks and trucks and other set pieces. The Germans were then fed false information that this unit would lead the invasion into France at the Pas de Calais instead of where the real attack would happen in Normandy. After the initial invasion, Patton would lead the Third Army with a rapid push into Europe. He would go on to rescue the surrounded 101st at Bastogne in the Battle of the Bulge. This was considered his greatest accomplishment of the war. After Bastogne, he led the Third Army into Germany. The war would end shortly thereafter, and Patton was made the military governor of Bavaria. At this point, he continually got into trouble for running his mouth to the press, and he was relieved of command and sent back to America. On December 8, 1945, Patton was involved in a car accident and would die of his wounds on the 21st. Finally, I want to tell you a little bit about the man himself. Patton was extremely disciplined and intense. He hated cowardice more than anything. He pushed his men as hard as possible. He often yelled obscenities to get his point across. This was a man who had no problem saying what he thought. This led to many incidences of him getting into trouble. When he was relieved of his command in Germany, it was for telling the press that Nazis, or some Nazis, were essentially the same as either Republicans or Democrats in America. And 1945 was not a time that people could be saying this. He was also openly calling for the invasion of Russia, which he felt was America's next enemy. He was a bit of a prima donna in regards to his appearance. He designed his own cavalry uniform and his own sword. Finally, he was an immense lover of history, but this may largely be in part to the fact that he legitimately believed in reincarnation. He felt he was a reincarnated warrior who has died many times. He fought in Rome and other famous historical battles, and that after he died, he would again go on to reincarnate and fight in future wars. In conclusion, you now know a little bit about one of America's greatest generals. We talked about Patton's early life, his role in World War II, and finally some insights into the man himself. Patton was born to lead men into combat, and led he did, all the way to victory.